What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Love and Rice Podcast with your host, Aunt Ma.
I'm your other host, Christina.
And if you guys are new to this channel, make sure you guys subscribe, follow us. We are on all podcast platforms. We are on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Spotify and YouTube is where you guys can go and actually watch the video and the visuals of this. If you guys are driving, you can just listen to like a normal podcast. But sometimes, it's nice to see people's faces and see who is talking because we kind of sound alike sometimes.
What do you mean? Is my voice that deep?
No, my voice is that high.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
All right, guys. So today we're going to be tapping into what was about 6 or 7 years ago for us.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a little bit hard because we got to get back into that world. And a lot of you guys have asked this question, so we're here to talk about it today. We are talking about first time parent experience. And that means that, we have 2 kids, right? We have Leia, we have Enzo, and Leia is about 2 years older than Enzo. And so we had a life where she was the only child and we were first time parents, and there's just so much going through our mind. Like at that time, we weren't even thinking about having a second kid yet.
No.
And then like being a parent for the first time was so scary, right? You try to do everything right. You try to, I don't know, there's just so many things going on in your mind.
You're just pretty much winging parenthood because you haven't had this experience before. So it's like you have this new life that you have to care for and you're responsible for. And it just makes you realize like how delicate they are, if that makes sense.
I don't even know how to explain it. People say, are you ready for parenthood? Are you ready to be a mom and dad? And honestly, no matter how much you try to prepare, right? Like before the baby's born, you're getting the newborn's room ready, the cribs, getting all the right materials so you can take care of the baby. And you are never ready for the actual experience.
I feel like there's always curveballs because all babies are so different, and hearing about one experience with one parent is completely different from another parent because some people have the easiest babies and then some people have really difficult babies. And then there's colic, and then there's different bottles that you have to take into consideration. So there's all these things that like you don't know about until you're actually thrown into parenthood.
So I think we prepared a lot for our first kid. We did everything by the book.
Yeah.
Right? We got everything that was needed.
And, I think for us, we were more prepared this time because we were trying to get pregnant for a while. And then...
What do you mean this time?
Well, I mean, because she was actually our rainbow baby because I did get pregnant maybe a year or 2 before her. And then just kind of going through that experience and kind of, going through a loss and grieving and stuff. I think... when we're finally ready to try again, once I got pregnant again, like I think we started to appreciate the process more. Yeah. And I feel like we were more prepared just because we're like, okay, we can't do things incorrectly now. Like we know what to do while I'm pregnant. I can't have cheese. I can't have a lot of like sushi and things that can be harmful to the baby.
So mentally preparing for things that you shouldn't do while you're pregnant, right?
Yeah. And I think being in that mindset already, it does prepare you for being a parent because there's so many things that you have to sacrifice. Like
that's true,
right?
That's true. I think the more serious we took it about our own bodies, it helped when we actually had the kid, right?
Yeah.
Because now we're more serious and more willing to do things for our child, right? Because even before you got pregnant, when we even thought about, okay, we're probably gonna have a kid in a couple years, that's when I slowed down on drinking. I didn't smoke anymore and all these things, right? I just cleaned my whole body preparing for putting the seed in you.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I was being healthier, exercising. I had to prepare myself mentally. And this was the hardest part, but I was sacrificing all the things that I love in life, which is like having coffee every day or just any kind of caffeine. Sushi is like my favorite food to eat, right?
Yeah.
And just like all these things that you just can't do. Like I couldn't exercise as much anymore, especially within the first trimester, just because we don't know what happened when I had the miscarriage. So we're just like, I'm going to stop doing
Yeah.
any physical activity. I'm just going to walk. I'm going to take it easy. And, I'm not going to take any risks. So I think with that, like, we were just like, we're not going to lose this one. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure that, she's safe up until delivery and afterwards.
So what actually went through your mind when you first had the baby? Like when you're in the hospital and you delivered it or
Delivered her. Yeah.
Like what went through your mind? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm a mom, or like what happened?
I don't know. I think because it was such a long process and I didn't get that far before and just knowing that we're in labor for a really long time, and I was just like, oh wow, like it's not what you see in the movies, because every time you watch a movie it's like, oh, the mom's screaming, she's giving birth, and like everyone's surrounding you and there's like a whole room of people and lights on you, but then it was just so calm and relaxing, and I think that's like amazing that they do that, because it kind of just puts you in a chill mood until the baby's here. And I think when she was finally here, I was just like in awe of her. I was just like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. She's so small. Like she's on my chest. You know what I mean? Like that first skin to skin contact that you have with your baby.
Yeah.
It's just like, you just fall in love again,
How was that experience? Did you cry? I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't think so. I think because she was crying, so I was just like, oh, it's okay. Like, don't cry. I was trying to soothe her and make her feel better. But
was there like a switch that turned on when she came out, when she was on you, and you're like, yeah, I'm a mom?
I don't think so. I think it was just more of like, oh, she's finally here. Like, we've been waiting for you for so long. And just to see her there, it was just like, I was just so focused on her and just like being able to hold her and have her in my arms and stuff.
It's crazy because we literally waited for her for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? And what's so funny about that, I talked about this in another episode before, was that how I got so scared when it was my turn to hold her. Like I got extreme cold feet, like, oh no, what did I do? I messed up my life. I did something wrong. And I was so pale and sweaty when it was my turn. I was like washing my hands and getting ready for it. And I was like freaking out.
I think you're too nervous about like actually holding her because you just saw like how delicate she was.
No, I was worried about how my life changed.
I do remember that. Like you did look like you were shocked, but at the same time you're like kind of in awe. I don't know.
Like I was in awe during the whole process, watching you give birth, and then seeing the baby. But the moment it was my turn, it all kicked in. I was like, what did I just do to my life? And I wasn't prepared for that. And I don't think anybody ever is, it was so scary.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I felt that way. Maybe because I got to hold her first. Yeah. So I was already like having that contact with her and I was just focusing on her. And then you're just watching from a distance like, oh shit, this is my life now.
Yeah. But then like the moment I actually got to hold her and then have that skin to skin contact with her, I instantly fell in love. I was like, I love this kid.
You started crying.
Did I?
I think I remember you started crying and then I was laughing at you because like you're holding her and you're like, what do I do? And then all of a sudden you're just like looking at her and you're like, oh.
It was just so much joy seeing your baby for the first time, because you've thought about this day your entire life, the day you would have a kid. And so now that she's here and I'm holding her, it's so much emotion and happiness and joy that I can't even control.
Yeah, it's like very overwhelming.
Yeah. And then what's even more overwhelming is that, I mean, I wouldn't know, but maybe because for me, it's because she was a girl. I never thought that I would have a daughter for the first kid.
Yeah, that's true.
So when I held my daughter, I was just like, oh my gosh, this little baby girl. She's going to be daddy's girl. Like, I love her, And so it was just an amazing experience. At that moment, I'm thinking about like all the things that I can do with my daughter, all the love that I can give her. It was just, I'm thinking about all those happy times from like, what's going to happen in a year and when she's like 6 years old, 10 years old. And I'm thinking about all that while she's just a few hours old, I
don't even think I was not thinking that far ahead. I was just like in the moment.
No, I was in the moment. But, when you're in the hospital, like there's so many things going on. You're learning the whole process about how to breastfeed, how to swaddle, how to change diapers.
It's a lot.
Right? How to give a bath. Like everything is so scary.
Yeah, and the one thing they don't prepare you for is that when you're at the hospital, you have people who are working around the clock to take care of your kids,
Yeah.
or your baby, and then they're constantly coming in, checking on you, checking their vitals, making sure the baby's okay, and there to help you, like give them a bath for the first time to show you what to do, change their diaper, swaddle them. So you're like, okay, I'm just observing and I'm seeing what you're gonna do, but it completely changes. Like once you get to go home, like you're so happy about it, right? But then it's like the reality of making sure that the car seat is installed correctly and making sure that it goes in right. And then once you go home, you're just like, whoa, that's a complete game changer, because now you don't have nurses that are there to help you and to rely on.
Here's how everything changes so drastically. The moment we're able to go home from the hospital, I gotta go walk to the car. You're out in a wheelchair with the doctor or the nurse, and you got the baby with you. And I pull up, to the front of the hospital, and it's like I don't even want. Once we put the baby in the car, I don't even want you to sit in the front with me.
Yeah.
Like go sit with our baby. Like you just want to do that. You're so happy.
That wasn't an option. Yeah. I just knew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the drastic changes. Nothing else is an option but the thoughts of your baby.
Yeah, because before that, it was always you and your partner always in the front sitting together. And then all of a sudden, just this one life-changing moment just completely shifts the whole relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Like the first week of bringing home the baby is such a crazy experience, because from watching, the nurse give the baby a bath, and like 2 days later, we got to give her a bath. I'm like, I was scared shitless, right?
Yeah.
Like, we got to make sure the water is warm enough, and do we have the right little tub? So am I holding her right? Now, the scariest part of giving her a bath was washing her hair.
Yeah.
Is the water going to get in her eyes and all this stuff? I'm like, am I touching her too hard? Trying to wash her hair and stuff. Like,
and then she was also born in the winter. So
it
we
was
were like
cold.
so worried that she was going to be cold, right?
Yeah, so we're giving her a bath, the first time. We're like, wait, is she changing colors? Is she getting purple? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
I just remember freaking out about every little thing. And then you have to worry about feeding them and making sure that they're getting enough, because when you're breastfeeding too, like you don't know how much milk they're taking in. And you're like, am I doing it correctly? Is she latching on? I hope like everything is going well, but who's here to tell me that I'm doing it correctly? And I remember I think even like with swaddling too, I think you were pretty good at swaddling and stuff.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
When you don't swaddle correctly, it's so frustrating. You feel like you're incapable of taking care of this child.
And it takes practice, because if you don't swaddle it correctly, like, and it's too loose, the baby will get out. And the whole point is to keep them swaddled in and not let them.
Well, so like the first time you're just like, okay, if it's loose, what's going to happen? Is she going to turn over? Is she going to suffocate? What do they call it? Like something syndrome where they could die in their sleep.
Yeah.
What is that
SIDS?
called? SIDS?
Yeah.
What is SIDS?
Shocking. Is it?
It's basically something about like the infant can pass away.
Yeah.
Right?
Sudden
infant death.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And so you're so scared when you don't do things correctly, and you think she's going to roll over even though she's not capable of it.
Yeah.
But after a couple of days go by, you're like, actually, now I'm more worried about if I don't swaddle her correctly, is she going to wake up sooner? Is she going to wake up faster? And so like, I think in the first month when she's sleeping, I just want her to get the most sleep possible.
Yeah, and then the whole point of swaddling is because your baby is in your womb for 9 months, right? And they're so used to this like tight, confined space, and that's what makes them comfortable. Right. So then the whole point of swaddling is so that they feel like they're still in the womb. But then if it's too loose, then they always what is it, like they jolt, right? They're always like
they spaz.
Yeah, and then that's what wakes them up. And then with babies too, like they have to wear little mitts because of their nails, and if it comes off when they get out of the swaddle or whatever happens, they'll end up scratching their face.
Right.
And I think that has happened a few times. But I remember it was probably within the first 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
And I remember we were just trying to do everything, and she kept crying, and we're like, what's going on? How do we get her to stop? And I think we looked at each other and we're like both ready to just like break down and cry.
Yeah.
And then we had to like talk to each other and say like, hey, we got this, we can get through this.
Yeah.
Like that was
This is
a turning moment for us.
this is exactly what I want to talk about is the love you have for the newborn in the first month is so heavy and so strong that everything you want to do is for the baby, for the baby to develop and grow and be comfortable and whatever, right? To just
Yeah.
be a good baby. And then after the months, you're like, okay, I want to swallow correctly because now I need a break. I want her to sleep and not wake, and I want to get things done, right? But like the first month, you're just like, I want her to sleep so she can get the most rest she can.
Yeah.
Like the mentality is so different when you have that first parent experience.
Yeah, because as they get older, you're like, okay, I can't keep doing this. I can't just like lay with them like for another month and not get anything done. Like there's things that need to get washed and you got to work and do other things.
Right.
So
I think one of the hardest things is when you allow the baby to sleep with you in your bed at night, and they always say, no, you need to put your baby in a crib. Don't always be so attached to it and stuff. But it's like, this is my child that I've been waiting for 3 years. I am going to let her sleep with me all day, all night, every time. I'm so attached,
yeah.
you know?
And then you also just have to be responsible if you're doing that because some people will just put the baby directly on the bed with them. And then they end up like rolling over on the baby and then the blanket goes over the baby
Right,
and they
but-
can suffocate.
So all those thoughts came into our minds, right?
Yeah.
So we had this
All the
thing,
time.
this little,
It was
Bed.
a Dakatot.
so it's like a little padded bed that goes on our bed, and she's in the middle of us in this Dakatot. And at this time, like when I sleep, I can't even pull blankets to my neck and be comfortable. I have to like scooch down to the end of the bed to where I can do that to make sure that when I'm sleeping, I'm not pulling bed sheets over the baby.
Yeah, we were
Right?
very responsible
So,
about
like-
it. And with that Dakata, like there's a border around it that goes upward. So it's like you can't roll on it and there's no way of like going on top of the baby and stuff like that. So like I was always just like putting my head there and I was just always checking on her, making sure she was breathing. I'm like checking her chest and like putting my finger in front of her nose to see that like she's still breathing and stuff.
That's definitely something that we constantly did when she was an infant.
Yes,
right?
always checking to make sure that they're breathing.
How many times while she's sleeping throughout the night do you check to see if she's breathing?
All the time.
Like every 30 minutes?
Probably.
Every hour?
Yeah, like you'll be
That's crazy.
sleeping and I'm just like, or if you put the blanket up a little bit, I'm like, or if you get too close to her, I'll like move you away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
The protection that you have over your baby is next level.
Yep.
So I don't know, like, so I guess in your first month, how was it for you being a mom? Like, what was going through your mind?
I think I was just more focused on her and making sure that she was getting enough milk and getting enough sleep. And
Yeah,
I
her
was just,
health.
and I was just enjoying how little she was. And I was like breathing it all in and I was taking it all in. Like everything else was not a priority to me. Like she was my number one priority. And yeah, I think I was just so like in love with her just because we waited for her for so long,
Yeah.
and just knowing she was our rainbow baby. I was just like fully invested in my time with her. And I think I was just with her all the time. Like if I were doing chores or washing dishes or whatever it was, like she would be swaddled
Yeah.
on me, right? I'll have a little baby carrier and she was just always on me. So that was my way of getting stuff done and just keeping her with me.
I think those were my favorite times, was being able to hold her as much as I could.
Yeah.
So like I really enjoyed putting her down for naps and sleep because I get to rock her for 30 minutes, and I think every time we would go to this routine and like sing her a song so she would fall asleep, and there's like these motions that you got to do side to side, rocking your baby, and if you do the wrong motion and she's not going to go to sleep. And it was just like, I feel like the first few months was probably the most stressful time of my life.
Why do you say that? Just because you're so scared of everything and making sure that
Yeah.
she's okay?
Yeah, I think I was probably I felt the scaredest in that time of my life, because it's like, are you doing everything right? Are you doing this right? That, and like it's so much.
Yeah, I think when they're that young, you're just like very overprotective and overly cautious of like everything that you're doing and stuff. But
Yeah.
like even then, like really thinking about it, and like I know a lot of time has passed by, and for me, I feel like the first 3 months were more. It was like it was nice. I think it was just afterwards, and this was just our experience, our own personal experience with her. But do you remember like after the 3 month mark, like everything just kind of went downhill for a little while?
What do you mean?
So what before I became a parent, I always assumed I'm like, hey, the bottle feeding and eating were the easiest parts of like being a parent and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then with us, Leia was smaller because like we're both small, right? And she was always like on the lower end of the scale. And then at some point the pediatrician was telling us like, hey, I want her to gain more weight. I know she's breastfeeding, but let's introduce some formula into her diet. So once we started doing that, then she became allergic to the formula. She became allergic to my breast milk, and like it was just so hard after that. Like at one point, she was failure to thrive because of this.
I would say the first 3 months of having your child is the most stressful, but the best time, because she's so small that you're just enjoying all those little moments. And as she gets older from that 3 months and on, now the health complications start coming in. Are you doing enough?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why is the doctor saying this? You're going to nonstop doctor appointments, and like that's where we find out about what you're talking about, right?
Right.
But it's yeah. Then it gets even more stressful. But those first 3 months is before she needs to develop faster, is probably the best time you'll ever have.
Yeah, because it's scary because of your own paranoia also. It's like because you know that they're so delicate and you want to make sure you're doing everything correctly, so you're overly stressing yourself out. But then once they get older, then it's things where you're like, oh shit, like this is out of my control. What do we need to do? And then also as first time parents, we're like, the doctor has to be right. She knows what she's doing. She sees families and babies and kids all the time.
Yeah.
We have to follow exactly everything she's saying. And at some point you have to be like, hey, like I need to start listening to myself. Like I can take in what you're saying, but I also need to go with what I believe. Like if I feel like something's wrong, I have to be okay with like saying something.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of like, I don't know. We tried to follow what everyone else was saying. We tried to do that, and I felt like it made things a little bit more complicated.
That's the hardest part, and then like we were like, Leia was so loved on social media when we had her. She had like, I don't know, her first like week of being born, she had like 30,000 followers, which was insane to me, right? And
I think everyone has been waiting as long as we were for her.
Right. And so, when you talk about listening to everybody, it's not even just the doctors. Now you have all these people on social media commenting like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And then you're kind of listening a little bit because, these people have experience, right?
Right.
They got kids and stuff. But then like it gets so crazy to the point where like, now you got to choose who to listen to. Do you listen? Like, I don't know if I need to listen to grandma, grandpa that much, other parents, friends. Like maybe if I have a question, I would ask. But if the question isn't there to be asked, I don't think I learned at a certain point to not listen to people.
Yeah, because
it was really hard.
Because once you have kids, everyone's gonna have their own point of view.
But every kid's different.
Experience, exactly. So they will just tell you what they think is best for your baby. But at the same time, that's what I'm saying. It's like you are with your baby the most. So if you feel like something is better for them, you should probably just try to do what you think is best for them rather than like, oh, but this person said that. Oh, but they think this and da 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 da. They have kids, they must know. But I think we've learned after this where it's like you have to fight for your kid and not just go based off of what you think other people are saying.
How was
correct?
How was social media for you as a first time mom? And seeing all these comments about what we're not doing for our baby and things like that.
I think for the most part, we did receive a lot of love, and people adored Leia and our family, and just seeing our family dynamic change and grow.
But we were getting crazy comments too.
But yeah, at the
right?
same
People were saying
time,
like, "Oh my gosh, I think she's got Down syndrome. Oh my gosh, she's autistic and all these
yeah,
problems."
and that's
I'm like,
crazy too,
"What?"
because it sucks, because once you show your family and kids online, there are a lot of people who are gonna have things that they want to say to you, and there are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, well, you're doing this incorrectly. Parenting should be like this. You're doing this wrong." Da da da. And before, when we just had Leia and we had friends that were getting ready to have kids and things like that, I'm like, hey, just remember, once you share your life online and people see that you have a kid, like, you're gonna get all of these people coming in and giving you their feedback and judging you and telling you how to parent your child.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, especially when it came to like that Down syndrome comment, like, Leia had her issues and her feeding issues, which hindered her development, because there are a lot of things to take into consideration. But yeah, like, I would have a mom and she's like, "Oh yeah, I think she has Down syndrome, or she might be autistic," and da, 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 like saying things that would be very offensive. Like, I don't know. Would you say this to people in person, or do you feel like just because people are sharing their lives online that you can just be like, "Oh well, I can say whatever I want because I don't know you"?
Yeah, it's just hard to read those things because when you're going to the doctor like a couple times a month, you never hear that from the doctor. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, well, she's healthy. We just need her to drive a little faster, things like that. And that's as bad as it got for us during that first couple of months. But
yeah, and I want to say that there's nothing wrong with like having Down syndrome or being autistic or anything like that. But just to make those assumptions about people when they're already so stressed about being in parenthood and stressed about feeding issues and therapy and all of these other things, like, just always remember, if you don't have anything nice to say to people, like, you don't have to say it because they're already stressed about other things. Like, why add on to it,
I think the problem is not what the kid can have. It's more about, why are you diagnosing my kid?
Mm-hmm.
For what reason? That's it. That's just that part,
Yeah, and I think it became more offensive because they're probably, I don't know if they're saying things about what she's doing and stuff, where you're like, hey, like, just because you see 10 seconds of what my daughter is doing on a clip, it doesn't mean you know what she is.
The only reason why I created a profile for her was because I wanted her, when she gets older, that she would have these things for herself that she could always look back on. Like, I wish I had that when I was a kid, right? I wish I had videos and pictures of me, like my first time eating solids, my first time walking, my first word. Those are all really cool experiences. So that's why, I did those for us, and then to share with you guys, because I thought it was cool to share with you guys, because you're always on this journey with us.
Yeah, and yeah, like, even for me, I see people who are posting baby pictures. Like, there's trends that go on social media, right? I'm like, oh man, I wish I could post this trend, but I don't have any baby pictures. I have like 3 baby pictures of myself, and that's it, because my parents didn't have like the technology to do all of that stuff. And I think that's why we decided that we wanted to share our experience with people online and to show our kids, because it's like our pride and joy,
Right. Yeah. What's one thing that's crazy to me? In the first few months of having her, is I don't understand when you read on the news about parents who get so angry when their infant is crying, and they end up like,
they shake them,
they beat them, they die and whatnot.
And that happens so often.
For me, when she's sleeping, I'm talking about like 1 month old, 3 months old, and she wakes up, when an infant wakes up, they're crying, right? So when I hear her cry when she wakes up, I'm happy. I'm like, yes, she's awake. I can go hold her. I can lay her on me. I can play with her. Like, I cannot wait to hear her cry and wake up so I can be with her. So I don't understand all those horror stories that I see on the news. It's just crazy.
I don't know. Like there are a lot of stories about moms that have postpartum depression to the point where they like purposely kill their kids or
Oh, that's
attempt to and all
crazy.
of that stuff.
Yeah.
There was this recent story about a mom. And I think I told you about this too. Like she had a 5-month-old with her, and like I don't know how old her other kid was, but still very young, less than 10 years old. And I think she was going through a breakup with the dad, her baby's
Yeah.
dad, and I don't know, she was going through a depression or whatever it was, and she decided to step off the ledge at the Niagara Falls,
Oh yeah.
and she killed herself and her babies. It's like, yes, I
Yeah.
understand postpartum depression is the thing, but like why do you have to take your kids with you? And there's just always
Well, there's
these
no
horror
context to
stories.
any of that. Also, like no one knows anything. We just know that
Yeah.
someone jumped off with their kids, but it's crazy to even have those kind of thoughts and see those things. Um, what are some of the things that you thought about Leia's future when she was an infant? Because for me, there are the best times I had when she was an infant was laying on the couch. I get to watch TV, and we're having skin on skin contact time, and she's doing tummy time. And so basically she's laying on my chest, and I get to just lay there and chill out, right? But during those times, I had so many things run through my mind, like what is she gonna enjoy? What is she gonna do when she grows up? Like I have all these goals for her when she was an infant.
I don't know if I was thinking that far ahead.
Yeah,
I
I mean there are things like her first boyfriend, stuff like that, right?
mm,
Like we had all these thoughts.
I guess it's more of like, no one better break her heart. She's so
Right.
sweet and so cute, and I hope she has good girlfriends when she's older, and that no one, like breaks her heart too, and all these other
That's
things.
definitely all the things that we went through. Right? When you're
Yeah,
holding your little baby, you're thinking about no one better hurt her
you
when
just want to
she's
protect
at
it.
this age and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. Um, After all the stuff that we do for her throughout the day, right? Like the frustrations of like let's say changing diapers, and she gets diaper rash or some other rashes, and like you're going through all these stressful things throughout the day, feeding and stuff. But at the end of the night, nothing matters most than hearing your baby sleep. I
Yes.
feel like that was the best feeling in the world, is hearing your baby sleep.
Yeah, and I think it's just like constantly staring at them too at one point. Like you're just kind of obsessing over them and you're just watching them sleep and you're like, oh my gosh, she moved. Oh, she turned her head or she yawned or something.
Yeah, it's definitely an obsession when you have a little baby.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Life was really good at that time, you know. I I think for at least the first year, we never even thought about having a second kid.
Mm-mm. I think because we're so focused on her, and I think because she also had her health issues, that we just wanted to make sure that she was doing better. And we wanted to make sure she was at a good point in her health life. Would you say that? Before we would have to have another child and then not have that focus on her anymore,
Yeah.
right? Because how can we have another child and kind of just put her health on the back end?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, there was no thoughts of another kid until we knew that she was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some parents, they always have this like goal of like, okay, well, I want my kids to be like 12 months apart or something. Like they want to keep them
Right.
close by. So they kind of just do what they got to do and then they just have the baby. But I think for us, we were just so focused on her. We didn't know that we were going to have all these curveballs with her. And I feel like it just completely changed our lives.
I feel like we never even thought like, when are we ready to have a second kid? It was more
Yeah.
of like, when is Leia ready to be a big sister?
Like, when are we
Yeah.
ready to share this attention with another baby? Because I think we also felt bad because we're like, oh, she's our rainbow. We have another kid. Like, how are we going to split our time with her? And, I'm going to miss her and all of these things. So, I mean, I feel like I thought about that as a mom a lot because knowing that I would have to have a second child and knowing that how much time I spent pumping and breastfeeding and all of these things, I knew it would take away my time with her.
What What surprised you the most about becoming a parent?
Um, the one thing that surprised me the most is that I didn't know how hard it would be to be away from her.
Mm,
That was the most challenging part of my life, and I didn't expect it to happen because for me, I was always like, cool, you want to be the stay-at-home parent, you stay home and you take care of the kids, and I'll just be working. Like that's gonna be me, right?
yeah.
And I think when I had to go back to work, and I wish that the maternity leave laws were more flexible, and that they just gave more time to moms with their babies. But after 3 months, I had to go back to work already,
Hmm.
and that used to be the hardest thing for me, like having to wake up early to drive to work, be in traffic. It just made me hate it more because I was like, I gotta sit through this, and it's taking an hour away from me, like from being with my baby and being at work. I I used to be such a hard worker, and I used to be so focused, and I used to be able to multitask and do all these things. But once I had my baby, like that all changed. And I think because once I went back, that's when she started having her health decline.
Hmm.
And I was stressed all the time. And it was very hard for me to not be there. Like if you're dealing with her and having a hard time feeding her, I'm like, man, I wish I could just be there to take care of her and make sure she's all right.
Yeah.
And then at some point, like I couldn't leave. I didn't want to miss the younger years of our babies and miss all the milestones just to be at work.
Right.
Yeah.
So the surprising thing for you was how much you missed your child.
Yeah, like it completely changed my life because this life that I had always envisioned, um it's no longer because I had kids,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not that corporate girly anymore, and I never thought that would happen. I thought I'd be able to have that clean break from them and be like, all right, cool, they're at home with dad.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm just gonna be working, and that's it. But I couldn't do it.
What surprised me the most about being a parent was that everything I did, I felt like I was doing a lot for the baby, but at the same time, I thought everything was that's normal, right? Taking care of the baby and stuff like that. And my dad one day he said, "You're a good dad," you know,
He
uh,
still says that.
and he still says that, right? And every time the first time I heard that from him, that shocked me because I thought that what I did was standard. You just do that as a dad,
Yeah.
And so when he says that, I'm like, oh, he sees how much I take care of the kid, And so that was surprising to me, probably because when I think about how my parents took care of me, like, they had a nanny, they were always at work, stuff like that. So I can sort of see the differences, but also at the same time, I don't remember my first year, so I
Yeah.
can't say what they did for me, but it sounds like I don't know if it sounds like he's trying to say I'm a better dad or whatnot, but I don't know. It's just
I think
I felt surprised and good about it when he said it.
I think because to our parents, the lifestyle was different back then, where they always had to just hustle, make money, survive to try to take care of the kids. And even if that meant like working all the time and having someone else take care of the kids, like that's what it was. Like even for my mom, she would tell me like, oh, because we're always investing so much time in getting them to eat and drinking from their bottles and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
Like they saw how stressed we were about it. And my mom was like, we used to just put you in front of the TV. We'll lay you down on the couch, plop you under some pillows, and put a bottle right there. The pillow's holding your bottle basically, and you're feeding yourself. Like if you drink it all, cool. If you don't, and it falls
Right.
off or whatever, like that's just how it was. So I think for them to say that we're good parents is they see how involved we are and how much we've evolved, and just how much more we're investing in creating a better childhood for our kids.
I want to talk about and try to think about this the saddest moment you had when she was a baby. Um, I'll go first.
Okay.
My saddest moments was when, like I said, for 3 years we've been trying to have a kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she's finally here. everyone on social media has been waiting as well. And so there's so much love for Leia. And the saddest moment was thinking about how both of our parents didn't want to be there that much. You know, like, oh, how come they're not here every day? How come they don't want to babysit the child? They don't want to, be so involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like the saddest part for me. Like, oh my gosh, I thought my parents would be so more involved in this, right?
Yeah. And I think we say that because that's how it kind of was with us when we were kids, right? Like
Right.
grandma and grandpa were always around and aunties and uncles were always there. Like there was always someone there to play with us and watch us and hold us and take care of us. And I think when the time came and knowing how long we waited, all the heartache we went through to have Leia, like we were just excited and hoping that our parents would be there or
Yeah.
want to be there all the time.
But I get it now, right? After all this time has passed,
Yeah.
what I now understand was that they didn't want to, they were scared of infants,
Yes.
right? They're scared to do anything wrong or bad. They just didn't want to hurt the infant. They were, I think after not having a kid for, 30, 40 years, they're just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to touch an infant. They're so small.
dealt with a baby
they're
in
so
so
small,
long.
right? And like with Google, there's all these new things that you got to follow. The doctors know all these new things you got to do. And they're like, this is too, it was overwhelming for grandparents.
It is, because then they didn't have that information back then. Like they just did whatever they could to make sure that we survived. But there's all these things now that we have to do. They got to have this much milk. They have to be fed every 2 hours. And I think that stressed our parents out because they're like,
I mean, I even created a schedule.
I know.
Right?
You
From
made
morning to night. The schedule was to make it easy for them. So they knew what to do instead of just not doing anything.
Yeah, that stressed them out more.
But it's I don't know. It's at that time I was like thinking, get your shit together, like come be with your grandchild and enjoy the times. But now I'm just like, yeah, I get it. They were just scared.
Yeah, and I think because they did their time with us already, and then I think babies to them are also kind of boring. Like they'll come in and see the baby awake for a little bit, and then they're knocked out again for like the rest of the time. So it's like I get it.
No, I'm just like, how come you don't want to hold the baby right now? Right?
Yeah,
stuff like that. But to them, like, it's cool. They probably, I think maybe I'll understand it more when we become grandparents, when Leia and Enzo have kids, because I might, if I was a grandpa, I might at the time now enjoy me watching my kid hold their baby and take care of their baby.
Yeah.
Like that's a totally different visual right there and a different feeling. Like, oh my gosh, my grown-up daughter is now taking care of her own baby. I love watching this.
I actually think it's fear, because I remember like when our kids I remember when our kids had a baby, and then we will wait, right, the 3 months or until after they get their shots, and then we went to go visit them. And then we're taking turns holding the baby. And I know I'm like nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, am I holding, like providing enough support for the neck and everything? And I remember trying to pass the baby to you and we're like, oh shit, like, how do we do this again? Like, how do we do it correctly? And then you were so scared and you're awkwardly holding him. Like, you didn't know what to do anymore because it's been so long. Like, it wasn't that long, but imagine for our parents, it was like 30 years in the making. And so I think it's like not going through that experience for so long. And yeah, babies are fragile. Yeah,
you definitely forget how to be a newborn parent when you have when you're out of the newborn phase.
Yeah,
because there's times when like our friends will have a newborn and I will hold the baby, and I forgot that when I pick up their baby, I gotta hold the head and stuff like that, and I'll just grab the baby and then plop, the head starts moving. I'm like, oh shit, sorry. Like, so when you're out of that newborn phase, you totally forget everything. So now when you think about your parents 30 years later, they definitely don't remember anything.
And especially as like an older person too, like your ability is a lot different.
Right.
So
it's crazy. Is there anything else you want to share as a first-time parent?
I don't know. I always just tell people, like, just enjoy the experience. and kind of take in every moment, because it's a complete life changer. And is that even a word, life changer?
Life changing.
Well, I mean, it's definitely very life changing, and your whole life is just flipped upside down. So just enjoy every single moment. You don't have to worry so much about like, I don't know, just trying to do everything. Like just enjoy that time that you have with them, because they're only little for so long and time goes by so fast. And they're gonna completely just change the way that they look. They evolve so quickly.
Yeah.
And you don't want to miss any of that, or you're gonna regret it.
My only thing that I want to say is that any expecting moms who are pregnant right now that are listening, any soon to be dads who are listening, I know you guys are all stressed, worried, scared, and all that stuff. Once the baby comes, you will love your baby. That's it. You will love it. You will love being a mom. You will love being a dad. Stop tripping out. You're going to love it.
You'll have bad moments. So that's why you have to make sure you have a good, strong support system, because either it'll make you or it's going to break you.
Yep. All right, guys. I hope this helped you. If you guys are going to be parents soon, I hope you feel a little bit better and more comfortable. If you guys want to know more about parenting or whatnot, let us know what you want us to talk about. Drop it in the comments so we can help out, because this topic came from someone that commented that they wanted to know about it. So, we love sharing our experiences. That's what we're here for. Like some people have been saying lately, we are unc and auntie, so we're here to give you guys our experience. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you guys follow, subscribe on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And we'll catch you guys next time on Love and Rice.
Bye.